Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, back for another week of Super Saturday song reviews. Although, actually, this Super Saturday wasn't as super as it could have been because a certain one of the countries isn't actually sure if their national final winner will represent them, but don't worry, Hungary's first up, and their national final winner will, in fact, represent them at Eurovision, and in fact, he'll represent them at Eurovision again, because this year they'll be once again represented by the lovely, charming Mr. Joci Pápai. I think he's the first ever artist to return for Hungary. I could be wrong there. He's certainly the first main act to return as a main act for Hungary, at the very least. And I know the last time he represented his country, back in 2017, some people did kind of find the way I pronounced his name to be amusing, like, I'm sorry, Hungarian is difficult. I'm trying to say Joci Pápai correctly, and people are like, no, he's saying P-A-P-A-J, and like, I'm trying, okay? Anyway, his song this year is called Az en Apám, which means my father. I probably said that completely wrong. It's presented in Hungarian anyway. Music by Joci himself, or József, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Joci Pápai, and Ferenc Molnár, who also wrote the lyrics, and Ferenc's nickname is Caramel for some reason. I don't know, there's more information about it on Wikipedia, but not much more. So let's dive right into this song, shall we? I've got to say, the final of Adal was actually really interesting this year, wasn't it? And it was so very close to having all four of the 2016 super finalists in the same room in some capacity or another. You know, what with András Saunders being part of one of the acts, and Freddie was hosting, and Gergő Ola was one of the competing entries, although he was only in the final because Petrushka, the fourth super finalist of 2016, was disqualified, but still, oddly satisfying patterns aside, I only really agreed with half of the super finalists this year. For one, I would have liked to see Kulch in the top four, but whatever. Joci's song was one of the ones that I was happy to see votable for in the top four, and I was even happier to see it win. I didn't know if it would happen, and it did, and cool. And my reasoning for that isn't just so that I can watch the performance and go, hey, it's that guy again, it's your boy, but because this is genuinely a good song. As ever, allow me to elaborate on my reasoning for that. Well, right out of the gate, we already know that Joci is a proficient performer who's no stranger to the Eurovision stage and the whole process of performing and all that stuff after his impressive 8th place finish in 2017, but, to be clear, liking him just because he's done Eurovision before isn't a good enough plus point by itself. Rather, the point that I'm getting to in saying this is that we already have tangible proof that he's a highly competent, highly capable artist in the studio and live. He's creative, he's more than suitably emotional for this sort of music, and he's just all around a genuine, lovely person. But this time around, beyond just being an excellent ambassador for his country, his staging is a bit simpler than Origo, though Origo's staging was fairly simple to begin with, more or less, and I don't want us in Apám to live in Origo's shadow here. It's just easy to compare the two side by side just for the purposes of this argument, I guess you could say. My point is, the staging at Adal this year was clean, gimmick-free, fairly dark in terms of lighting, and had just the right amount of focus on Joci on the stage to keep it engaging, despite the lack of stuff going on. Whereas with Origo, there was the jar instrument thing and the dancer girl. This year, it's just Joci, just by himself. And honestly, his staging is proof that there doesn't have to be stuff in a Eurovision performance to make that Eurovision performance good. Now, to switch gears for a second, let's also focus on the, well, I don't actually know what the correct term for it is. Does it fit under the general umbrella category of vocalization, similar to the refrain of Origo? I'm gonna stop with the comparisons now. Whatever you want to call it, anyway. I'm sure you know which part of the song I mean. That is some good stuff. Even without any actual out-loud words in any language, Joci's emotions still come through clear as day, and it gives the song its own distinct flavour, both as a Joci Pápai song and as its own entity within his discography. It's a sign of him embracing his Romani heritage once again, and that's both cool and good. Again, he's making the performance his own. On what I assume is a related note to that as well, there's also the percussion line that comes into the song roughly halfway through. It's surprisingly precise. But yeah, there's something about the flavor of those drums and just how they're worked so neatly into the song that I just really like. No pun intended, it gives the track a little extra kick, if you know what I mean. Just, it keeps engagement with the song ticking over nicely without losing focus, I suppose. As an overall package, I do think this song is a bit of a grower, but once it has grown, it's one of the finest flowers in the garden that is Eurovision 2019. Or am I being too weird again? In any case, for those who are just joining us, navigating using the timestamps in the video description, I just mentioned that this song is more of a grower than a shower, so to speak, and that, to some, might actually be viewed as a weakness rather than a strength. Give this song a chance, and it rewards you handsomely for having that patience, but at Eurovision, a lot of people will only hear it once or twice depending on whether or not it qualifies, and that one or two times might not necessarily be enough for its appeal to really shine through to the most people. That is, the most people. I think it's going to be a fairly even split between people who do like it quickly and people who take longer to appreciate it, and then people who don't like it at all. Like, for most people, they will get a reaction, but you know what, I've already forgotten what I just said. As it is, what with the song's simple enough staging at Adal, and its comparatively simple composition and introspective tone and the Hungarian language lyrics, the song might just prove to be a bit too other for some people to properly find it in themselves to enjoy it. I concede, this song isn't for everyone at first glance. It does sort of need the listener to slow down and just appreciate the moment to fully get the most out of the song, and not everyone really listens to music for that kind of experience. So that might interfere with some people's potential enjoyment. Music do be like that, though. And in a kind of connected way, there's the... can we call them vocalizations? Is that what we're going with? Anyway, to some, they add quite a bit of dimension to the performance, especially in the studio version with the melancholy sounding whistling being part of it, and I hope they bring that to the Eurovision performance, but I digress. The thing is, because of Joci's singing voice and the Romany influences and the general style, some people might judge that to be filler. They might even go so far as to describe it as tuneless. It's not tuneless, but some people might feel that way. I would imagine the sort of people who really liked Fuego last year would feel that kind of disconnect with this one. I don't know, just a guess on my part. I don't think it is just filler personally, but there are some viewers who are a bit less tactful than me, and so that might be how they hear it, and if you do, that's fine, I guess, that is valid, but some of us don't view it that way, and that's also valid. After all, 1/3 of this song, more or less, is given over to those vocalizations, and to some that could come across as wasted space depending on how patient you are with the song's stylings. I don't feel that way, but you might, and that's okay. Now then, how would I rate this song on a completely numerical scale? It's a really tough call, to be perfectly honest, so for now I'll give this song a 9 out of 10 in my personal rankings, but I feel like that is going to go up as the season progresses. It took me a bit of time to fully warm up to this song, but it was worth the investment, and I do really like the studio version, what with the whistling and stuff. It was one of my favourites of the Adal final this year. As it is, we know that Joci is a very capable performer on the Eurovision stage, so I'm confident that Hungary is in good hands once again this year. I just hope that the voting public gives this one a fair chance too, because he deserves it. On the technical side, meanwhile, I really don't know, I really don't. I suppose, after some heavy deliberations on my part, I'll land on that same high 9, on the understanding that this song is very well composed and very competently performed by a competent emotional performer. It's just that it lacks that instantaneous appeal that is oh so important at Eurovision. That said, in exchange, because it doesn't make that instant connection just immediately, that does also mean that it's much harder to get sick of this song, so that at least will work in its favour. You could hear it 5 times and you wouldn't get bored of it, or you might get bored of it but you wouldn't be sick of it, if you know, like there's a distinction there somewhere. And also, kudos for keeping up the streak of performing in Hungarian once again, by the way. It's always nice to see a country that is secure in its self-perceptions like that. Good on you, Hungary. But how is the fine nation of Hungary looking in the bigger picture? Well, I think Hungary's sort of in the same position as Italy, where I gave them that yellow neutral arrow, but that just means that they're already in a good place without changing anything. They're not improving because there's not much left to improve. So yeah, Adal is as good and as strong a national final as ever. I mean, the new graphics I could sort of take or leave, but I mean, it's good to see that they're always willing to keep things updated. It's as good as last year, it's as good as the year before, and so on. In fact, if you check the iCard of this video, you'll find that I already made a video about Hungary's overall admirable humility at Eurovision, and this song plays right into that pan, to be perfectly honest. And so that really does just demonstrate that they're going steady. And if you're going steady when you're already in a good place, that just means that you're setting yourself up to stay in that good place for a while yet. So again, it's a good thing. But will this song qualify Hungary for the final? I'd be highly inclined to say yes, to be honest. Time was, I would consider this to be a really risky song, but I'm confident for a couple of reasons. For one, Hungary has never failed to reach the final since the introduction of Adal, or, well, actually since their return in 2011. So Europe does seem to be pretty fond of what they have to offer. For another, Joci has qualified for Hungary before, so he's certainly capable of it, and I would dare argue that Origo was less likely to qualify than this, what with it being structurally so intensely Hungarian Romany kind of thing, and because it featured a rap section. And yet, it placed second in its semi-final and then went on to finish 8th overall. By contrast, this song is comparatively safer, with broader appeal along the same sorts of lines. As is the case with everyone this year, it's not a guaranteed thing, and some people might hold that safeness to be against this song somehow, but I don't know. I would be surprised if this missed the final, to be honest, but that's just my thoughts. What about you? I would love to hear what you think in the comments, in the poll in the icon of this video, wherever. Do you like the song? Are you not so keen? Do you feel somewhere in the middle? Do you not care either way? Whatever you feel, that's valid. Just don't be evil about how you express that opinion, because there are no wrong opinions, just really bad ways of expressing them. Anyway, to Joci once again, to the whole Hungarian delegation, sit down, stay humble, and I wish you the very best of luck when you get to Tel Aviv. See you in May.